Yo, what's going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back for the OPTC video, and in today's video, we're taking a look at S-Hawk in some actual content, not PvP. Yeah, weird. Taking a PvP legend into some actual content, it's kind of ludicrous in 2024, right? 99.9% of the time a PvP legend comes out, they're pretty much only good in PvP, and they don't really have a place in the rest of the game. However, I actually think S-Hawk's a pretty good unit, so we're actually going to take the PvP legend into some regular content and see how he goes. Starting it off with Grand Voyage level 5 against Monkey D. Luffy at Load Town. That was the team, those are the supports, let's dive on in. Now, S-Hawk is a driven slasher int character, so that means that you can satisfy the conditions for the Grand Voyage level 5 over here at Load Town against Luffy with a mono int driven team. Led by S-Hawk, he doesn't have a super type, he doesn't have a super class. However, he does still have a very strong captain ability, especially for a PvP legend. I would say he's probably the best PvP legend in the game in terms of like actual play. And honestly, in terms of PvP play, he's probably the best PvP legend as well. Rise or Shinobu definitely make an argument for both cases of PvP and actual play. But I just think that this S-Hawk is he's just miles above every other PvP legend. So, as a captain, he is a driven and slasher-based captain. He reduces the entire crew's cooldown by 1 turn at the start of the fight, and then boosts the attack of slasher and driven by 4.75 up to 5.5 based on the tap timing of the previous unit in the chain. So basically what this means is if you tap with a unit, that unit will hit with 4.75. If you hit a perfect, the next unit will hit at a 5.5 times rate. If you hit a great, it'll be a 5.25. If you hit a good, it'll be a 5 times. And if you miss, it'll be back at the 4.75. He also boosts the chance of getting matching auto slash and driven characters, and then removes paralysis and silence on himself. So he has that Lunarian King effect, where he's basically just immune to 2 particular debuffs. Now, the fact they chose Silence is awesome, and obviously Paralysis is because of what he does with his special, but he also removes both of them as a Sailor as well. So this synergy as a Captain and as a Sailor, removing the debuffs on himself that he can actually remove for the entire team, works exceptionally well. And another thing that this character actually is that all other legends are, is he's a 40 cost legend. So this particular piece of content that you're seeing right here, we actually need to use a team that's under, what's it called? Under 240 cost, I believe, which isn't that prevalent nowadays. However, having a 40 cost unit means that we can actually bring some other units on the team that have a little bit extra cost. So that's like one quite niche thing about his ability. But look, as a whole in regular play, he is a very niche character nonetheless. So as you guys can see here, we're wrapping up Grand Voyage at Logtown. He has synergy with a lot of very good units because he's special, does something that not a lot of other characters do. Plus he has utility, plus he can give a V1 Mihawk effect. And as you guys can see here, you can actually take down Luffy on turn 1, and then you can use the Blackbeard ability of rolling back your specials to take down the other 2 units. Now, don't get me wrong, like this Grand Voyage, it's not the be-all or end-all. This is probably one of the better designs Grand Voyage, in my opinion. Yes, it's quite old, and there's like a billion teams that can beat it now. But even on release, there was just a lot of variety for the content, and S-Hawk taking it down works quite well because he can remove special binds. He has a tap timing ability, and he can give a chain boundary and chain boosting shenanigans, which helps out in this particular piece of content. But really, the 40 costs is where he shines in this particular area. Moving on to some more day-to-day content now, let's take a look at the Arena Shinobu. Arena Shinobu came out alongside Bonnie, so we can use a more mono-int-centric team. However, another upside to S-Hawk is that he actually gets buffed by slashes. He's a slasher booster as a captain, and with the release of Zoro and Sanji for the New Year celebration, slashes just kind of became like one of the best classes in the game. On top of that, if you run them hybrid together, you can actually turn everyone into slashes, which will give S-Hawk that buffed captain ability where he can just buff your entire team. Nevertheless, slashes already have a lot of support, so he's going to be okay no matter what, but just hybriding him up with one of the best legends of the game is obviously going to make him a lot more desirable to actually use, whether it's a sailor or whether it's a friend captain. He's got a lot of very, very good partners that he can pair up with. Slashers have like quickly become one of the best classes in the game, as I mentioned. So him having this ability to sort of pair up with one of the best teams in the game makes him very, very strong. His special, though, removes paralysis and special bind by 6 turns. He deals 50% of the damage dealt in the previous turn in typeless damage to all enemies. Increases the tap timing of Slash and Driven up to 0.6 for 1 turn, depending if you hit a perfect. And then he boosts the final tap of Slash and Driven characters by 30%. So he gives that unique final tap buff. Plus, if you have a Mihawk or Mr. 1 who has used that special in the turn, he boosts the crit damage of all characters up to 50%. So, I believe he does 10% of his attack as crit damage. So now I believe that goes to 50%, or it becomes like a 1.5 times multiplier. One of the two. I'm not exactly how sure that crit damage buff actually works. But I might make a short on it with Fujikazaru and stuff like that, just to sort of see how it actually operates, because there's only 2 characters in the game that actually have this now. The downside to this is that we don't really have a meta Mihawk or a meta Daz Bones that like kind of runs around. With like cross guild and that representation possibly coming in the future, we definitely could see some stuff. But as mentioned in the previous clip, the abilities that this S-Hawk has are very specific to not only S-Hawk, but only a few other characters in the game, which makes him very valuable in running regular content. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, he is a PvP legend, so 99% of the time you're just going to use him in PvP, and he's phenomenal in PvP nonetheless. But running him as a captain with cooldowns, the 5.5 times multiplier is really, really nice, and that very unique captain ability for some unique buffs makes him quite desirable for particular teams. Is run him on an incredibly overpowered team that has the ability to just overkill damage. Now, normal attacks only basically kill units like this, V2 Dofi, V1 Mihawk, any of those units that need this 0.5 times damage dealt in the previous turn. Normal attacks only just absolutely cuck it. However, when you go into stuff like Treasure Map and there's revive mechanics, when you go into particular content that doesn't have normal attacks only, you can actually use this to your advantage by bursting on turn 4, doing a butt ton of damage, and then just utilizing the S-Hawk ability on the final stage to just insta-kill bosses. Whether you do it like from like stage 3 into stage 4 or stage 4 into stage 5, it is a very, very unique ability, and one that actually works incredibly well, namely for stuff like revives and whatnot as well. So I can definitely see this Mihawk seeing play in stuff like, or S-Hawk I should say, in stuff like treasure maps. I can definitely see him being a very fun legend for people to try and run in certain situations, whether that be in PKA or whether that be in treasure map or Kazuna, where there are those types of revives or low HP thresholds. Treasure map mini bosses is a perfect place for this guy. Just bursting on stage 2 and then just popping his special on stage 3 to kill. Doing over like 1 million damage and just decimating the opposition. I can't remember exactly how much... Well, I can't see how much damage that actually was. Bosses tend to have a lot more HP nowadays. So the 50% isn't like crazy. But if you're going back through some of the old content, you can do some pretty fun stuff. The downside is if you're running 2 of them, as you guys can see there, if you do kill, you can't actually get it to pop off in the same way. As mentioned though, I feel like most of the time if you are using this ability for that 50% damage, you are going to be using it on a particular revive that doesn't have normal attacks only. And like I said, I can definitely see an endgame player using this to their advantage in treasure map, on a mini boss, or just trying to make a run a little bit faster. This particular guy is going to do absolute wonders, because he basically just does what the V1 Mihawk does, just better. But if you are just using him for that ability, you're probably just going to opt for V1 Mihawk 99% of the time. However, I do believe this guy has a much lower cooldown than Mihawk does at 14 turns, 13 with Limit Break Expansion if you're going crazy for PvP. So you can do some fun stuff there. Like I said, if a boss doesn't have normal attacks only, that extra damage is going to be pretty nice. But it's definitely not going to be something that you are going to chase, or something you are going to try and put to the forefront. Rather just use it so that way you don't actually have to deal with any of their annoying gimmicks or anything like that on particular revive. So over here on Arena Brook, we are basically just going to let him revive, let him do all his hunger shenaniganry and all that crazy stuff, and then just say, nah dude, I don't really care. I'm going to pop an S-Hawk special and I'm just going to blast you into oblivion. So it's going to wrap up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to go down there, bell like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff. Most importantly, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.